In 1976, the Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty nationwide, reversing a decision from 4 years earlier when it had halted capital punishment throughout the United States. This is the text of Gregg v. Georgia on your screen, the case that brought it back, and it brought it back with a caveat. States can only execute someone for the crime of first-degree murder, and a jury has to decide not only if someone's guilty or not guilty, but also what punishment they should receive. In Tennessee, all first-degree murder cases require judges to fill out this form, a Rule 12 form. And we have acquired, as a political science department, all of these forms dating back to 1977 for all first-degree murder cases. And we've used those to create Tennessee's only death penalty database. From that, we found some statistics about who gets the death penalty in Tennessee. And we start early in the process. Who gets convicted of murder? Over the time period, you can see that defendants who are convicted of murder are overwhelmingly male and disproportionately young and black. This chart indicates some specific percentages. As we get into more sophisticated analysis, we can see that there are 27.4% of first-degree murder cases in Tennessee where prosecutors seek the death penalty. These are elected county officials who have unilateral power to decide when to seek the death penalty. With this subset, our percentage of young and black males gets a little bit lower. The analysis gets a bit more sophisticated when we think, okay, now it's gone to a jury. When does a jury come back with a death sentence? That's only 11.5% of all first-degree murder cases in the state over our time period. And we see a little bit more flattening of the racial demographics here. A little bit less black, a little bit less young, still heavily dominant for male individuals to get the death penalty versus females. Quickly, some county-by-county data here. You can see that Hamilton County and Shelby County have been leaders in this state, both in terms of prosecutors seeking the death penalty and juries coming back with the death sentence. So think of this as a two-part process as we get into some more sophisticated statistical analysis based on our data. And we're going to build some regression models. If you don't know what a regression model is, don't panic. I'm going to break this down in a palatable format. We've got two models. One explains the prosecutor's decision to seek. It's got over 1,500 cases. Another looks at jury decisions to impose a capital sentence. About 400 cases on that one. When we look to the prosecutor model, don't need to read every line right here. We're going to break down four categories of variables: victim traits, defendant traits, crime traits, and evidence traits. We're going to look at each of these. If you see stars, that means that variable is significant. Look to the right, you'll see an odds ratio. That's going to give us some explanatory power. First category, victim traits. White victim, female victim. Both significant. Look to the right. 1.48 times more likely for a prosecutor to seek the death penalty when either of those traits is apparent in the victim of the first-degree murder. Killing of a law enforcement agent, almost 5 times as likely for a prosecutor to seek the death penalty in those cases. Pictured here is Lee Hall, executed by the state of Tennessee in 2019. Defendant traits, only one of these is significant. There's no evidence controlling for our other variables that prosecutors are more likely to seek the death penalty against black defendants. But if you have prior felony convictions, almost twice as likely for a prosecutor to want to choose to have a jury evaluate a capital sentence. For crime traits, we've got 3 items, 3 or more victims. That makes sense. A serial killer, 5.6 times more likely for a prosecutor to seek the death penalty. Dangerous concurrent crime with your murder, 1.3 times more likely. And then rape, evaluated as a separate offense, 2.9 times more likely for a prosecutor to seek as well. For the evidence variables, all 4 of these variables are significant here. Each of them nearly doubles the likelihood of a prosecutor seeking the death penalty. Co-perpetrator testifies, familiar witness ID, confession, scientific evidence. These all increase your likelihood of a prosecutor seeking a capital sentence. What we turn to next is how a jury gets involved in this process. Again, a jury's got to decide, are you guilty or not guilty? Then, same jury. Do we give out the death penalty? Or in Tennessee, life without parole, life with parole? Those are the only options at this point. We have the same model built now for jury decision making. More than 400 cases considered in this analysis. What do we learn? Well, white victim, female victim, no stars. Not significant. What is significant? Killing of a law enforcement agent. As we'd expect, jurors are going to come down more likely with a capital sentence, 6.3 times more likely, in fact, if the perpetrator has killed an agent of the law, police officer, district attorney. We turn to our next category, defendant traits. Nick Sutton is pictured here, executed by the state of Tennessee in 2020. Black defendant, look at that odds ratio, 0.36. Black defendants are actually less likely in the state of Tennessee, surprisingly to some, to get a death sentence from a jury. Male defendants, more likely than a female defendant by a factor of 3. Prior felony conviction, 4 times as likely for a jury to come back. Yet when we turn to crime traits here, nothing is significant except for the county in which the crime occurred. Your 4 most urban counties, Shelby, Knox, Hamilton, Davidson, almost twice as likely for juries in those counties compared to all other counties in the state to come back with a death sentence. Finally, we're back to our evidence traits, and just as with prosecutors, jurors care about evidence, and that's a good thing. Co-perpetrator testimony, familiar witness ID, confession, scientific evidence, highly significant, 3 to 5 times more likely for a jury to come back with a death sentence in these situations. And some might say that's a positive that these are significant as opposed to racial demographics. When we look at similarities across the prosecutor and the jury models, all of the evidence variables are significant. And again, that's important. Killing of a law enforcement agent, 4 to 6 times more likely to get a death sentence. Also an important finding, as well as prior felony conviction. Whether it's a prosecutor or a jury, if you've got prior felonies, your likelihood of getting a death sentence goes up. When we think about the future, the big thing we're doing is trying to combine our death penalty database from the state of Tennessee with those from Georgia and North Carolina. So we're working with other professors. We're also going to start to see if we can tease out some parameters related to time, because it seems like the general public is less favorable towards death sentences today than they were in 1977. So that's something we're going to look at in the future. I have not worked on this by myself. A quick shout out and a thank you to those who've helped build Tennessee's only death penalty database, and to all those who are going to continue to work on this important project in the future. We've got grad students, undergrads, and current faculty working on this. It's an important topic, and I'll hope that you'll all take some interest in seeing its growth in the future.